series as a producer, as an actor, as a writer, and as a director after more than 3 decades in the industry. Natasha will next appear in the Zazzle Jacobs film, His Three Daughters, a bittersweet portrait of 3 sisters coming together in the wake of their father's worsening health. Coming to Netflix soon. We are, of course, here today to discuss her brilliant performance in Rian Johnson's gritty and clever mystery series, Pocker Face, which she also executive produces. Please welcome Natasha Lyonne. She's the best, isn't she? That's what we like to hear.
TBD. I'm not sure these are real shoes.
The shoes are, ooh.
They're a loaner, but
well, we'll make sure we're
fascinating. Yeah, smart.
It's all good. You might get, if they're tabbies, you might get robbed, but that's okay. Natasha, you are a Golden Globes nominated, Emmy nominated, Critics' Choice nominated for Pocker Face. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Can you tell us what it was like coming off of Russian Doll, a universe that you created completely, and then entering into this new collaboration with Rian Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in some way it wasn't that different, in that it was just like, he's a giant, Ryan, and his idea was, he's so excited about his idea, and I remember early days of Russian Doll, there was like a failed NBC version of it that Amy and I had done first called Old Soul, and I had Marla Gibbs and Ellen Burstyn played Ruth, and anyway, it just felt like, oh, the two of us are going to do something together, you know what I mean? And then it sort of takes whatever permutation it does for the necessary job of like, okay, you're doing this job or this job or this job, and Ryan felt similarly, like, oh, we're gonna go after this thing together. So oddly similar in a way. It just in terms of like the nugget of the idea or the inspiration, I guess.
The show feels so fresh, but the nostalgia is so palpable. Can you talk about the inspirations for making the show, and besides playing this fantastic character, Charlie Cale, which we're going to get into later, what else made you say yes to the show?
So I think that a thread that Russian Doll and Pocker Face had in common that Ryan and I would talk about so much is, Elliot Gould and Robert Altman's The Long Goodbye, and that version of a Philip Marlowe. And I'd really stolen it, with Leslie Headland, with Amy Poehler, with all of the team. I had stolen that character so completely for Russian Doll, down to the cat, oatmeal, and going to the deli, and mumbling. And then weirdly, I guess what came out of that is a bunch of people making GIFs of me in the overcoat, and now I'm Columbo. I'm like, guys, I'm fucking 70s Elliot Gould, leave me alone. Or like I'm fucking Albert Brooks, you know what I mean? Modern romance, like just chill. And not there yet. Guess I'm not Jenna Rollins, okay, message received. Meantime, so Ryan has his extraordinary wife, Karina Longworth. If you guys are familiar with her podcast, you must remember this. She's a fucking knockout. So I tried as a producer with the company to see about adapting that podcast on Paul Robeson and Lena Horne, sort of blacklisting in during the Red Scare, so Black Reds essentially, and then Ryan and I ended up next to each other, just sitting at a book signing of Karina's, so it was funny how that went down, I guess.
I love that. I found it really heartening that he wove in all of your strengths in the character, the wisecracks.
Wait, I'm so sorry, I didn't finish.
Totally.
And so anyway, so then Ryan and I would sit around and realize that what we had in common was this fucking obsession we all probably have with this 70s slow zooms, Columbo, the pilot of I think it's not actually the pilot, it's the second one, they call it the pilot, of Columbo that Spielberg directed, and the slow zooms, and I've been stealing that shit like, version 2 that maybe you didn't see, it has a lot, like literally that Columbo shot, so we were kind of hot for the same thing, and then the main thing became about distinguishing them. Do you know what I mean? Which maybe advance answers your next question, which is kind of, that like Charlie sort of always has a wind at her back. You know what I mean? She's the sun, the desert, like, and she's sort of open. And I loves chatting about, I know who are you, okay, and look at this, a nice skirt with the great, and like, Charlie has that attitude, like everything is sort of interesting and the same, genuinely interested in human beings kind of way. And I think Nadia's not. Like, Nadia's a little bit more on a mission, so that, and weirdly, they're two different versions of like a Philip Marlowe, which is, the end of time. I mean, there's a million versions of it.
I mean, Charlie's superpower also is that she's, can just tell when the bullshit is happening. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just like wondering if you can talk about how that is specifically relatable to you.
Well, I choose you, Amina. I try to inculcate myself as best I can from hearing too much bullshit in my real life, because there's a lot of it. I would say there's something like, I saw some quote, I probably put it on Instagram stories just to talk to you directly. But I don't know, it's basically like, Tupac's mom, Assata Shakur, something like, street smarts without education are kind of nothing, but also education is nothing without street smarts. That's terribly paraphrased. And I was like, oh, right, that's kind of the Charlie Cale bullshit thing, I think, that I have in real life that I identify with as, and it's also based on the same standard, meaning like, to tell the truth seems so much more interesting to me than to lie, and the white noise sound that we all make of all the small lies, every day, let alone the big ones, are like, they do suck. And I would say, as somebody who has street smarts and limited education, I definitely can spot the diff. It's, I don't know, so it's amazing that Charlie has a perfect record, though. That's a little bit different. I don't have it like that.
And now that you've invoked Assata Shakur, I hope that they have PeaCock in Cuba. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like, who knows? Obviously you talked about Elliot Gould, but some of the other DNA for this character to me is so Gene Hackman, Night Moves, clearly Big Lebowski, and they're all male references, because those are the ones that I can come up with because we live in a society. I'm gonna pretend I'm not seeing this vaping.
I'm not on stage, right? I'm not wearing my glasses. I'm just a little nearsighted, so it seemed like a private moment.
We're all here. It is a private moment. But
and the vaping is crazy because I'm smoking at least 20 times as much as I was before. Definitely gonna kill me, but I guess I quit, and somehow now I'm this guy. I mean, nobody's proud of this. But here we are. And anyway, I'm sorry. Yes, invoking men, Night Moves.
Well, yeah.
Fuck yeah. Jeff Bridges, Lebowski, the sweater, Tracy Gigi Field, the costume designer, Brian. Big back and forth. The sweater's from Banana Republic, which is so unlikely, and you need multiples. And yeah, it was a big move, because it was like, but once we intro this sweater and then she doesn't stay Lebowski the whole time, can you outro the sweater? It was a lot of,
I mean, the sweater is great, but I was gonna say that she really inhabits this kind of very laid back, cool, smokes a vape on stage, like confident space that traditionally is really taken up by men, and so I just wonder, if you could talk a little bit about what it's like to inhabit that world.
I think, let's see. So as a self-taught kid who loved the movies, I think I would see sort of like, whatever, Michelle Pfeiffer and Scarface and be like, God, fucking what a knockout, that must be so fun. Or even like, Jenna Rollins or Jessica Lange and Frances or Betty Davis and anything. And I'd be like, wow, they're incredible. And I would sort of like steal moves, like, or something from Woman Under the Influence, or I would, deliver things like, I remember Jean Harlow and Mae West and kind of like PC Rosalind Russell. Like I would sort of steal from the ladies, Barbara Stanwyck, in this kind of specific way. But ultimately, I think just as like a businessman who was a child, I quickly assessed that I would be better off, going Pacino, Peter Falk, Seymour Cassell, like, a little fucking Pesci, I was like, this is, I think I was just like any businessman looking like, where is there a gap here that needs to be filled? And I look at like, Buscemi, fucking, and Sylvester Stallone I wanted to mention, because I fucking loved Rocky as a kid, and I loved Scarface as a kid, I loved Raging Bull as a kid, and Taxi Driver, The Godfather, so I think I was just sort of checking out the kinds of blondes of like, even Meryl Streep in The Deer Hunter, I was like, no, John Cazale, like that's, you know what I mean, like that's a fucking gold. I don't know what the question was.
Honestly, it doesn't matter.
So I play boys, all right, and I would see, like, Gene Hackman in Night Moves is, a gorgeous one, and they just got to take sort of, like, bigger swings in a way, like, even, like a baby Jack Nicholson is really just, he's so, like, charismatic in his drama and most simplest. Like, I think we've lost the purpose of kind of charisma, and I called it, I'm sorry, now I'm on a tangent. I'm about to go on the attack. Modern times. Apologies in advance, and you can cut me off at any time. It's just, I feel like there's an epidemic of whisper acting, and I don't know what the fuck is happening. Like,
this crowd agrees with you.
Yeah, well, they're professionals, right? It's like, so it's become, and then I was watching, what's his name? Richard Burton, right? Liz Taylor's husband, many times. And he was like doing it Shakespeare fucking something. I'm not Captain Shakespeare. And, but Mark Rylance is terrific in all Shakespeare. And it's like his face was so flat doing it, and his insides are like fucking so gleaming. And it's so different from the kind of sort of stillness with whispering that is fake that I see all the time now. Anyway, my point is just to say, so I stole from the boys, I think also that, the confidence of, that they got to genuinely do a bunch of stuff and be sort of maybe still a serious person. Like, that even if they were wacky, they were still trustworthy and as reliable narrators in a way.
I love that. One of the things I really enjoyed about this season, this is no spoilers, is that we don't see Charlie get too bogged down on chasing a love interest, and I really appreciated that the way that you get these big revelations, like intimate revelations about her character, or through her sister, played by Clea Duvall, or through her best friend, played by Dasha Polenko. And I'm just wondering how much of a deliberate choice that was.
So I do think a lot of that is, like, I really think Ryan is a puzzle box master. I think there's, like, no coincidence that he's him. And he's a very humble genius, and he's a very funny person. And he fucking works hard. And I really love him. And it was very interesting to watch it. As somebody who's been, running writers' rooms, to watch Ryan's version of, like, sort of a meeting out story is fascinating, because it is a sort of confidence that is to your deeper sort of questions about, like, not needing a love interest, not, some of these things, I guess, like, when one writes women, it's always like, but what does she do for a living, and who is her romance partner? Obviously, it's something I was already trying to avoid with Rush and all, and here also, I think that Ryan naturally, is such a great fucking writer that he knew to also, and how to sort of encapsulate what he saw. So a lot of that is him. Like, we spent a lot of time talking about Fat Story, like, Fat City. I was like building all this backstory. Susan Terrell and that is sort of interesting. And what if her dad was like, she came from this boxing, and like, imagine her childhood. Like, when you get to Clea Duvall, it's like, did she fuck up the marriage? Like, was she somebody who was like, oh no, Mom, Dad's been cheating on you for months, like, as a kid, and that's why Clea hates her? We would talk about that, but what was interesting is Ryan would not put it in, but it would be put in some sort of like fourth location, sort of buried underneath a line, and that really speaks to, I think, like, beautiful writing. It's okay, you can even pick up. Don't worry about it. Lights are on, and we're riffing. So anyways, I do think that it's something that I really learned from him. Like, it's an interesting business that way also, of like, you grow in these sort of stages, and that's something I really learned from him, is like, his way into writing and storytelling is, we make a lot of jokes. We did, I co-wrote with Alice Jew this episode, The Orpheus Syndrome, that I also directed, and Ryan's idea, calls me, I'm in Mexico, he's like, Phil Tippett, watch this documentary, great, I'm on it. Also told me to listen to the Will Smith audiobook. There were several recommendations, only one was relevant to the show. I learned a lot from both. He has such a clear vision, and we would joke that it's almost like making that episode together was so much of like Hitchcock and Salvador Dali on the most basic level, kind of coming together of, and just like, and yeah, there's blood off the walls, it's Phil Tippett, and he's so structure based that, like, I think it was so joyous and rare to get to work with somebody like that in that way. Like, we were making each other laugh so completely. Of just the sort of, whatever, Stephen Hawking. It's like, bring it in and, widen it out. Bring it in, widen it out. And that's very fun and special. So I like the way he rolls out information. And I love Clea and Dash, obviously. I love my friends and working with them again and again.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the